Hi, this is Julie and welcome to It's Not Over. Today we are going to talk about gay marriage. And to help me today is my good friend Robin. She's here to share what she knows and has lived through. So hi, Robin.
Hi, Julie. You're a good gay friend.
My good gay friend?
About how we've ever referred to each other. I don't know. We'll come up with
Maybe my one gay friend.
I am definitely, no, yes.
And you
definitely your closest main gay friend.
Okay.
Yes.
He was also a mother. He was also had a partner, which he had a child with. So let's talk about that.
Okay.
Okay. First of all, tell me a little bit about you, Robin, in a nutshell.
In a nutshell, my daughter is 18. I was with my ex-partner for a couple of years before we had Riley. I'm a native of South Florida. And I've known you for 16 years, so.
Who's your best heterosexual friend?
Julie Savitz, without a doubt.
Who's your prettiest heterosexual girl?
You know, I have to go Julie, but I never had a crush on you, so that's always been the,
Weird.
Yeah, weird. Sorry, but keep the hair straight, and you might have a fighting chance.
All right, so let's go back. This was before I even knew you.
Yes.
Right? When you and your partner decided to get pregnant.
Yes.
How was the process, the artificial insemination? We think of a turkey baster.
Well,
like that.
It's a syringe. It is a very long syringe, but had it in a doctor's office. So went through basically every testing that you can imagine. And I remember my mom saying at the time, why are you having all this testing done? If a man and a woman are having a child, they're not going through testing. They're just getting pregnant. Or seeing.
I knew you were gay.
My mom, yeah. Okay. That's how I came out to my mom. Okay, so yes. No, my mom knew I was gay. But basically, you go through so much diagnostic testing to ensure that while you're going through this process, that it's gonna, it'll happen. So we went for every test you could imagine, which definitely had its stories. I think not to get into too much detail, but when they couldn't find certain things and they had to go somewhere else in the doctor's office or the hospital to get it, I'm just laying there on the table and here I am, and it's very different. It's very different. So anyway, I got pregnant on my second try.
That was my next question. Thank you.
Okay, great. Everyone said you will never get pregnant on your first try, and the process is essentially we'll go back even further.
Okay.
When you're looking for a donor, we knew there were a couple things. We wanted anonymous, for sure. We didn't want somebody to come back and have any involvement. We knew we wanted nothing legal to come up. So we were doing a fully anonymous donor, and it was fun. You would go on, and this was in 2004, 2005, we started this process, and you would basically find different sperm banks, and they would send you information, and you would say what you were looking for, and you buy kind of their biography. And we just got so into it. We're like,
It's a book?
You would get a printout. You would get a printout about the person.
Okay.
And so there were a couple people we were looking at, and this one guy, the best thing the staff could say about him was that he showed up on time.
Oh, okay.
And I'm like, all right, that's not so much.
Right.
We're going to move on.
Okay.
When we thought we wanted blonde hair, blue eyes. Not sure why, since my ex was dark hair like me, and we're like, why would we want a blonde hair, blue eye baby when obviously it's not from us? So kind of got away from the physical. And we just found this guy, and he was great, and I had a baby picture of him. But we really liked him. We could listen to an audio CD of his interview, and he was great. He was head of Best Buddies. He baked for everyone, and the clinching was When Harry Met Sally is my favorite movie, right, ever. And I remember I was in another room, and I hear Barbara yell from the other room, oh my God, his favorite movie is When Harry Met Sally. And it was we knew.
You know.
We just knew. And so you call the sperm bank up, and you say, I'll take so many vials. And it was the craziest experience. And they send it to the clinic that we were using. And from there, you're doing your temperature and you're basing things on dates. And as soon as you knew that you were ovulating, you went there.
It's a process.
It was definitely a process. But it was great. I knew nothing about this.
Right.
But we learned a lot, and my ex is in the medical field, so that helped a lot. She could really explain a lot of those things that were happening.
And how did you decide it was going to be you that was going to carry your child?
We talked about it early on. And for me, it was more where I was in my career, where she was at. It was more realistic that I would be able to stop working financially, that she would not. So it just kind of fell into place.
Okay.
I had more of a desire, I think, to be pregnant.
Okay. What is one thing that a lot of people get wrong about gay couples? The biggest thing.
The biggest.
Not me.
But you're like the spokesperson of the hetero world.
Yes, I am.
That there's a stereotype that you have like a male figure and a female figure. I would say that's definitely it's a stereotype. Like, we were much more equal. That it's easy. I think a lot of my friends who were single, and I'm dating women and they're dating men, and they're like, you have it so much easier.
Right.
And not at all, because you have a lot with women.
Right.
So women, there's a lot of dynamics. There's just a lot that you have to communicate about.
Yeah. Now, with the birth certificate, I know we spoke about this, and it might have been something with your ex-partner that was a thing, and I know things were important to her. How did you decide whose name went on the birth certificate?
So in 2006, it was the biological birth mother.
That was it.
And that was it. There was, Barbara was involved every step of the way. Never missed an appointment. I always considered and still consider her like Riley's other parent.
Okay.
But the state, especially at the time, did not. So it was my name. And then when Riley was 6 years old, after we had separated, we then went through the process that Barbara adopted Riley.
There's a hyphen? Is there a hyphen?
There's no hyphen.
Really?
Listen, those SAT bubbles.
Okay.
Yeah, I know, it's a thing.
Okay.
It's definitely a thing.
There's no hyphen.
There's no hyphen.
Hey.
Her middle name is Barbara's last name. Technically, she has 2 middle names. So, but no hyphen.
Okay, what about when you were picking out names that your daughter would call you something? There's 2 moms.
Right, well, she wanted mommy. More like Barbara wanted mommy. Barbara wanted mommy. And I remember her saying mommy. And I always felt like I'd be more mom than mommy. And that was probably like the one thing we fully agreed on.
I'm just thinking about this now. When Riley, your daughter, introduces you, when she has friends over, does she say mom and mommy?
Not so much anymore. And I think about that now. Because so she's going to be 19 next week.
Yeah.
And I think about that.
Grown.
Like, what does she say to her friends? And I think she says mom for both. I think when she's referring to her friends, I don't think she, goes up to Barbara and says, hi, mommy. I mean, she's past that age.
Right.
So I think she'll say either my first name or Barbara's first name, or like my mom's.
Right.
My parents. Riley's just always kind of gone.
She's cool. She is a cool cat. So let's talk about, you guys have this beautiful family and your home, and you have this amazing relationship and this beautiful daughter. Let's talk about, if you don't mind, the breakup, or when you knew it wasn't going to work out, and how that might be different than a heterosexual relationship, especially since you were not married.
Right. Nothing specific happened.
Right.
I think it's just, this is very much, I'm sure, the same in a lot of relationships. You just go apart. I think we took our eye off the ball, and our focus became everything about Riley. And that's what happened. And Barbara was working. Our schedules weren't really necessarily compatible.
Yeah.
So Barbara very much wanted her free time to be with Riley.
Yeah.
And there were some dynamics in there. I think a big difference is when you're not a biological parent.
Yeah.
There is a difference of mother and father, because you're both biological. And this is, my assumption. I mean, it's not something that we've really openly talked about, and I can't say for other relationships, but from what I have heard, it's hard. If you're not the biological parent, especially in Florida, where we went through a lot to have adoption.
Yes.
you're probably somewhere always going to have that concern, like what could happen.
Right. Right. That is tricky.
Very much. So when I first made the call for Barbara to adopt Riley, my attorney said to me, she thanked me right away. She's like, thank you for allowing her to adopt Riley, because so this is now 2010. Laws were not in place to allow it. And she said, thank you for letting her adopt Riley. And it never occurred to me that Barbara was not her mother.
Right.
I didn't.
And I've noticed that all the years we're together. It's really beautiful, the relationship that you have.
Thank you.
It's really beautiful.
Like I have a friend who was basically, her ex had zero interest. And throughout her pregnancy, she was alone. And that was not the case with us. So I think I always looked at it like we're both her parents. I didn't want that to change if we weren't together. So my attorney thanks me, and she said she's working with a couple, and the biological mother called and they started the process. And she said, I will never talk to her again. I can't believe I was with this woman, but she's a great parent. Right. And, I didn't feel that strongly about Barbara, but she's a great parent. She's her mother.
She is amazing. She's amazingly good with her. Okay, so now Riley, fast forward, she's 19.
Okay.
She's in college with my daughter. How do you handle co-parenting for college and dorm and payments and cars? How does that work as far as decision making?
For sure. So when we went through, even though we weren't legally married, we still had mediation.
Okay.
So we had the same attorney, and we wrote up everything as if it was a legal divorce, and it's all legally binding. So we had an attorney that did our wills and everything when we were together, and he basically referred me to somebody who specifically with gay marriage and gay parenting.
So it's a document, just like
we have a document like anything else, and it says 50%, like we agreed.
Right.
And I remember like going for mediation, she said, I have a whole day.
So easy.
She said, I have a whole day for you. And we were both like, for what? And the two of us actually went to lunch after. We went to Joe's for lunch. Like, we just had a very smooth, separation. So we just have it. You have to have it regardless if it's gay, straight, it doesn't matter. It's still a relationship. It's still co-parenting. That's all the same. So we have everything is 50-50.
Okay. And that works for you. Has there ever been a time?
Sure.
Okay.
So, like holidays, sometimes it's easier than others. Mother's Day when Riley was younger was harder than it is now. But our relationship is also changing, right, as well.
Right.
So if I would say 90% of it works, as she's gotten older, it's much easier because now I don't have to be that person to always like speak up. Like Riley has a voice.
Right.
The hardest thing is probably sharing time.
Yeah.
That was harder.
Well, now Riley has a choice. And I know sometimes,
yes,
somebody wants to be somewhere or somewhere else. And you have this paper, right? It's not necessarily
right. And it's easier because I think Barbara is easier about it. So we've had those conversations. And it's nothing personal. If Riley doesn't want to be at my house, I don't take it personally.
Right.
And half the time when she is at my house, I don't see her. She's with her friends. She's at that age. So it's like everything. It's up and down. It's a constant conversation. And bottom line, as long as you're having those conversations, you'll get through it.
She's extremely independent. Yeah, I know her well. Would you say there was a time you can remember that she was judged differently for having a parent that was not, like her other friends' parents, and who knows?
I think I thought there was more of an issue than Riley did.
Yeah, that's so amazing. That's what a beautiful answer.
I mean, growing up, we're in a very small community, very traditional family community, and she just had zero issue. And I did not know, there was another family in our neighborhood that I knew of that was two men with 3 kids, and I didn't know them. So, but you hear there's like a gay couple, you are like how excited about it because where we live, it's not like that overall. When she left preschool to go into public school, I said to her how great it's going to be because there's going to be other kids like you. 2 moms, 2 dads, 1 parent. And she got all upset. I said, what's wrong? And she's like, I want to be the only one. Like, she loved it.
That's her.
Yeah, for sure. So I think with her friends, never an issue. And in fact, and you were there when my 20 year of coming out,
Mm-hmm.
you and our other colleagues
Right, party. We had a party with spell drum, right? Was that it? One of the partners?
Party City, something with the balloons. Oh, Publix, there was something with the cake, but it all worked out. It was great. But we had a coming out party, and it was not only you guys, but it was your kids.
Right.
And that was
Well, we never thought of it differently. Right. Riley had 2 moms, and that was just how it was.
And I remember Jenna asking me a question about being divorced, which is great. That in her mind, it was no different.
Yeah.
And that's just it. We're coming in. I mean, I came out in 1998. My coming out was far different than anybody coming out now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so for these kids,
If you say it's easier now?
1000%.
Yeah.
I mean, I always felt like being in South Florida was such a blessing because I didn't have to be fearful of a lot because there was so much going on in the world.
Yeah.
So for me, it was easier, but it was still 1998. Still a very different time. I lost my best friend over it. Ellen had just come out, and there was like the biggest news in the world that Ellen was gay. So it was definitely different. You didn't have those normal, everyday people to look at like you do now.
Now, let's talk dating. How long did you wait? Where did you meet? What was your dating style? How long did you wait to date? Or your breakup?
It was pretty quick. I say I started dating soon enough that Barbara and I were back in counseling talking about my dating. It was quick. It was probably quicker than it should be, but our relationship and my background's in mental health, so I was very aware of not jumping into something without closure to something else.
And where were you meeting people? Was it online? Is there online gay dating?
There is now. In 1998, when I called It's Just Lunch to see if they would have, I said, do you have I remember it said, like, do you have a homosexual or a gay group or whatever? And the girl hung up on me. She was so freaked out that I even asked the questions. So yes, there are, it was Love at AOL originally, and then Match had like you could check off what you were looking at. And I started dating this girl very quickly, and she wanted to meet Riley. And that was a big thing.
That's another question. When does that happen?
It's interesting. It's happened different times with different people. So she wanted to meet Riley right away. And she said to me, I can't get to know you unless I know you as a parent. And I saw a side to it, but then you're not dating, like, you're dating me.
Right.
So she never met her because Barbara was adamant against it.
Okay. So you guys decided as a couple, when would be the time?
We did. I think in that situation, because it was so new, and Riley was really still adjusting. I mean, at the time she was 3.5, almost 4. So it was definitely something for a conversation. I mean, as she got older and I got older, it wasn't so much of a conversation.
Right.
And it's different. I mean, 2 women dating, you can kind of play it off to your kids.
Right. It's my friends. Right.
And, there were times, and just because of dynamics, if Riley was around with somebody that I was seeing, you could do that. So that was definitely something that's different, but it's not, it's still, you're a parent. You're still looking out for your child's best interest. You still don't want them to be attached. And I did date somebody who had a 4-year-old, as Riley was older, and she had a 4-year-old, and she introduced me to him pretty quick.
But that wasn't the person that moved in with you.
Yeah.
And it was that person?
Yeah.
Okay.
We moved, and I don't think she introduced me as her girlfriend.
Right.
But it was probably sooner than I would have been comfortable with.
Would you advise other gay women to wait?
I wouldn't, just like with heterosexual dating.
Yeah.
I wouldn't bring somebody new in all the time, and they're never going to see that other person again.
Right.
You have to, I feel, be secure enough that that person is not going to change the next day into somebody, become somebody else that you're seeing.
The relationship is the same.
Yeah. So, but you have to, everyone's different. Your kids are different. Your relationship with your ex is different. But my first one was very significant because she was so adamant about meeting her that,
I don't remember that.
yeah.
I don't remember that at all.
Um,
Did you wear makeup?
did I wear makeup? Yeah, I think I did. I have makeup on now.
I was gonna put on makeup.
Yes. Not a dress, but I did wear makeup.
Okay, so I know you spoke about counseling and that when you were breaking up.
Yeah.
Are there coping skills that you learned? Not that it would be any different during divorce that
Absolutely.
you would say to someone?
Absolutely.
What are those?
So we continued seeing the therapist that we saw while we were trying to make the relationship work.
Mm-hmm.
We continued probably for a good 9-10 months after that of co-parenting.
Okay.
And then there was somebody through the school that we would meet with and that Riley would meet with who was a social worker, and she was great.
Yeah.
And a couple of pieces of advice that we got, never start something that you're going to change. So Barbara, when we were together, would always read to Riley. So the nights that she was home,
I remember that.
she would always read to her and put her to bed. And she wanted to continue that. And the social worker, I believe it's her, said, absolutely not. Why are you doing that? It's not realistic. She doesn't live in your house anymore. Why is she coming over to read to her when she's going home from work? Like, it's not going to help her. So that, and the other thing that we always did is when you when you pick up, go in the house.
Oh,
Don't honk, go in.
interesting.
Say hi, how are you? If you were, and
So it's an amicable relationship, even if it's not.
exactly, if you weren't feeling well, you had a cold, are you feeling better?
Right.
You don't have to have, a 3-hour conversation, but they need to see that you get along, right? We're still for parents, and you're still a family, and it's to a certain extent.
A unit.
Yeah.
Yes.
It looks different to different people, but we're still her parents. We're together to have a child,
Right.
and for me, I can't imagine not having some type of co-parenting relationship. So always going in, be amicable, and just don't put something in place right away that's going to get removed.
Is there anything you would have done differently? Any big things I know you would have done differently.
I remember when we told her and we talked about no crying, like we're not going to cry. And I remember Barbara was crying and I looked at her and I was just like, we need to really kind of be very together in how we're doing this. I don't know if I was as clear with Riley as to what was happening.
Right.
Because a couple years later, so 6 years old, we went to get an anniversary card for my parents.
Right.
And she said to me, what's an anniversary? And I said, it's the amount of years somebody's married. And she said, well, when is yours and mommy's anniversary?
Wow.
And we're in Publix, like checking out. And I said, Riley, mommy and I aren't together anymore. And for the first time, she broke down.
Wow.
Full break. It was like she just didn't get it. And it was like this revelation to her, like, oh my God, like my parents are divorced. So I don't know if she had heard divorce or separation. And now she's a little bit older and putting it together. And it was tough. And I went to, we're still we're both your moms. We're both your parents. I had to point out to her, look, at your life is not changing from before Publix to now.
Right.
But that was interesting.
I mean, I can say as an outsider, it was always just my one gay friend, but coming to your house and meals and whatever it was always really like a beautiful, normal, loving experience.
Thanks, yeah.
So kudos to you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Kudos to you for
coming.
Thank you.
And I'm looking forward to, I'm sure I'll call you in the morning. Robin is my first call in the morning.
Absolutely.
So every day.
Before I get out of the car, until 7:45.
Thank you for coming. I really appreciate it.
No, for sure. It's important to have it.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Goodbye. Thank you for joining us today. I hope you learned something and see you next time.